From the moment she stepped across the threshold, she felt an odd sense of belonging. The house had a vintage charm that spoke to her solar creaky floorboard here, a brass doorknob there, and a lovely fireplace that begged to be filled with crackling logs. But as the weeks went by, something began to feel off. It started small. Julia found herself often staring out the front window, watching the comings and goings of her neighbors. Most of them were friendly and waved hello as they passed, but she noticed how often one particular house, the one across the street, remained shrouded in mystery. It was a two-story craftsman with peeling paint and overgrown hedges. No one ever seemed to go in or out, and the windows were perpetually draped with heavy curtains, making it impossible to catch a glimpse inside. Intrigued, Julia asked the neighbors about it. "Oh, that's the McAllister place," said Mrs. Henderson, a kindly woman with a penchant for baking cookies. "They moved in last summer, but I haven't seen them in months." "Months?" Julia exclaimed, peering across the street. "Do you think they're okay?" "It's just a little odd," Mrs. Henderson replied, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I mean, I heard strange noises coming from that house at night, like sounds of whispers. But who knows? They might just be some reclusive folk." As Julia returned home, she found herself pondering the McAllister home. She felt a slight chill as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that danced along the pavement. That night, as she settled into bed, she couldn't shake the unease lingering in the pit of her stomach. She decided to focus on her writing, hoping to unravel her thoughts. As Julia returned home, she found herself pondering the McAllister home. She felt a slight chill as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that danced along the pavement. That night, as she settled into bed, she couldn't shake the unease lingering in the pit of her stomach. She decided to focus on her writing, hoping to unravel her thoughts. One evening, while working on her latest manuscript, a sudden tapping sound broke through her concentration. It was a light rhythm, almost musical, yet undeniably eerie. Julia paused, her heart racing as she peered out through her window, squinting to make out the silhouette of the McAllister house. The sound persisted, now joined by faint whispers that echoed through the night, a chilling cacophony that sent shivers down her spine. Unable to ignore it any longer, she bolted from her chair and slipped on her jacket. With a flick of her porch light, she stepped outside into the biting cold, her breath forming clouds in the air. Convinced that someone needed help, she ventured across the street, the hair on her arms prickling under the moonlit sky. As she approached the McAllister house, the whispers grew louder, morphing into indecipherable murmurs that pulsed in the air like a living creature. She hesitated, peering through the window, her heart pounding. She saw flickering shadows moving within, but no clear figures, just shapes that twisted and turned with an unsettling grace. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling as it sliced through the silence. "Is anyone there?" The whispers fell silent, and for a moment, she held her breath, half expecting someone to respond. But all she heard was the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. Feeling foolish yet determined, Julia rapped her knuckles against the door, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the deathly quiet. Just as she contemplated turning back, the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway that beckoned her in. "Hello," she called again, stepping cautiously inside. The air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of mildew hung in the stagnant atmosphere. She took a few hesitant steps, her footsteps muted against the worn wooden floor. "Is anyone here?" she murmured, an uncanny feeling washing over her. The walls were adorned with cobwebs and fading photographs, but without anyone present, it felt like a mausoleum, the memory of life long extinguished. As she wandered deeper into the house, the whispers returned, swirling around her like a chilling wind. It felt as though myriad voices were whispering secrets just out of her reach, echoing her name and drawing her closer. Curiosity gnawed at her, and she stumbled upon a door slightly ajar at the end of the hall. Tentatively, she pushed it open, revealing a dim room filled with eerie shadows. In the center stood a rickety table, cluttered with scattered papers and odd trinkets. One peculiar item caught her eye, a small mirror, its surface cracked and clouded, seeming to shimmer with a dark energy. Suddenly, a loud crash from the upper floors startled her. She spun around, her heart racing, as the whispers grew louder, almost frantic-like they were warning her to leave. A primal instinct kicked in. She didn't need to be told twice. She hurried back toward the front door. But just as she reached the entrance, The door slammed shut, trapping her inside. Panic surged through her. "Let me out! Let me out!" Julia screamed, pounding her fists against the wood. The whispers coalesced into a singular voice, cold and malevolent. "Stay with us." She stumbled back, her eyes widening in terror. Just then, shadows appeared in the corners of her vision, swirling and crashing against the walls, echoing the chaos in her mind as the mirror's surface wavered with images of despair and loss. "Please, I don't belong here," she cried, desperately grasping for the doorknob. It twisted beneath her touch, but the door remained shut. And then, in a final act of sheer will, she turned and faced the mirror, recognizing that whatever lay behind it held the key to her escape. With all her strength, she reached out and pressed her palms against the cold glass. In an instant, the images morphed, and the shadows turned into faces, twisted reflections that bore the agony of countless souls trapped within the walls of the house. Each face seemed to plead for salvation, even as they swirled in misery, their whispers echoing hers in a chilling symphony. "Help us!" they cried together, their voices layering and intertwining, a chorus of despair that threatened to engulf her. "Stop!" Julia shouted, pulling away as she stumbled back from the mirror. "I can't help you." But in her heart, she knew she couldn't abandon them. The weight of their plight felt impossibly heavy. Summoning her courage, she turned back to the door and pulled with all her might. The whispers intensified, their urgency pounding against her mind, but she locked onto her goal. At that moment, as her thoughts crystallized, she understood that she wasn't just fighting for her freedom, she was battling the darkness within that house. In one final desperate lunge, the door swung open, and Julia tumbled outside, gasping for air as the cold night enveloped her. She scrambled across the threshold, her eyes darting back at the house, watching as a swirl of shadows bellowed in frustration before dissolving into the stillness. In one final desperate lunge, the door swung open, and Julia tumbled outside, gasping for air as the cold night enveloped her. She scrambled across the threshold, her eyes darting back at the house, watching as a swirl of shadows bellowed in frustration before dissolving into the stillness. That night, as she sat in her favorite armchair, her manuscript forgotten, the reflections of the lost souls still haunted her thoughts. She had fled from the darkness, yes, but a part of her would forever remain tethered to their plight. And as winter advanced, and the neighbors continued their everyday lives, Julia made a silent vow to uncover the truth of the McAllister house. For in every haunt, there is a story begging to be told, and she was determined to give them a voice.